Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Woodmansee. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming. I'm really glad to be back. I think this is the third time that I've done the talk, and so I tried to add some things and change some things for this year's presentation. And I'll tell you right off the bat that I cheated a little bit on the cover slide, so don't go out looking for all these butterflies around here. A lot of them, the purple ones and the super bright ones, you have to go to Panama. So we go there a lot, and I couldn't resist. This is what I do during COVID when you can't go anywhere. I sit around on Photoshop and play with my pictures. So yeah, so we'll talk today about the butterflies of North Florida, and I have a special love for the silk moths, like the Luna moth that Peg has on, and a lot of the other species. So I like to tell you about them because you're really likely to see them around here. So I want you to know, because moths have a kind of a different story than butterflies, and it's really interesting. If anybody has questions, just jump right in. So first, to talk about why butterflies matter scientifically and for all of us. Butterflies are a big representative of the health of an environment. So talking about conservation, when you have butterflies in a habitat, they are indicators of a healthy environment, which is a really, really good thing. When you see a lot of butterflies, some things are going well as far as protecting the environment. Areas where butterflies and moths, I'm sorry, I can't see my slide very well, matter is that they are natural pollinators and predator control for different plants as well. So that's super important. And they are model organisms. Maybe you've heard of frogs as being sentinel organisms in a pond area where there are a lot of frogs. That's an indicator of a healthy environment. Same thing in forests and meadows with butterflies. They are an indicator of a healthy environment. And I know a lot of you are aware that the Lower Swanee National Wildlife Refuge is right around us. And butterflies are very important in the refuge. I survey there I have a grant this year from Fish and Wildlife to survey in the refuge twice a month, and so I've been doing that now for, I think, about 10 months. So I'm getting to learn more about the patterns of when the butterfly populations are up and down. I always had kind of a sense of it, but now I have scientific data about it, which is really good to have. These are tiger swallowtails, and I hope some of you have seen them around. It's a common butterfly. It's a very large butterfly. You see them kind of floating along, often in forests. So, if you're really interested in butterflies, you're a lepidopterist. That's the big fancy scientific word. And you are a lepidopterist if you went to school for 1,000 years and got a PhD, which I did not do. Or you spend as much time as possible out in the field watching butterflies and learning everything you can about them. Or if you just like butterflies and you want to see more of them. So you can tell all your friends now you're a lepidopterist. This is the Sweetener's juniper hair streak, and it's kind of my featured butterfly for this talk because it is an imperiled butterfly and it is native to our refuge. Cedar Key, the red cedar tree, is the host plant for the Sweetener's juniper hair streak. So if you have cedar trees or you're around cedar trees, look on these little tiny flowers that are everywhere right now. This is a very small butterfly, like thumbnail size. Yeah. But they love to nectar on those flowers, and they use the red cedar tree to lay their eggs and raise their caterpillars. So a little bit about the difference between butterflies and moths. I don't know what happened to that slide, but on the left you have a polyphemus moth, which is one of the big silk moths. Polyphemus moths use different oaks, and you will see them a lot of times at gas stations at night because they come to the light. They're very driven by the full moon, and so they also will come to light, which can be confusing to them. So often at 6 in the morning when I'm heading out to do my surveys, if I have to get gas, I look around for a silk moth there. So The silk moths make a cocoon, which is a separate entity from their body. And they're silk moths because they spin the silk. They produce the silk that makes the cocoon. You can see the cocoon, let's see if I can remember what. This is it right here, looks like an urn. And if you are around and you see those in oak trees, if you see the top is open, that means you had a successful launch of a polyphemus moth. That's a female, by the way. Butterflies make a chrysalis, which is actually part of their body. They form the chrysalis in their body, and then you have to get into the real scientists to explain how that all works. But they actually, their body turns into the chrysalis. And then when they are mature, that's a black swallowtail there. When they're mature, they break it. It looks like glass. It's soft like plastic, but it looks like glass when they break it, and then the butterfly crawls out and lets the wings expand. You've seen that before. And you might notice that black swallowtail, do you see the little strings attaching his body? I think that's so amazing. They make these little beams, and this is out of their body. They make these little beams that they attach to the host plant or wherever it is that they've pupated, and that keeps it supported. But from a distance, you don't even see that because it looks like a little branch. Yeah, so that's the idea, for you not to see it. So butterflies and moths both lay their eggs, the adults lay their eggs on the host plant. And you'll hear me talk about host plants and nectar plants. So the host plant is what the caterpillars need to eat, and they change instars, which is the different stages of the caterpillar. They start out tiny, and each instar gets bigger and bigger and bigger until they're mature. Usually there's about 5 instars. Then at that point they wander off, and they can walk a long way. Usually they try to get away from their host plant because that's a way to draw a predator away, and they will go to another non-host plant often and pupate, kind of in a hidden place so that you don't know they're there. Because sometimes they pupate and will overwinter, so it may be months. Some of the silk moths even can go a year. So it's to their interest to be cryptic and not visible so that they can survive until they're ready to come out. So the life stages of butterflies, and this is true of moths as well, they lay their eggs, and butterfly eggs are beautiful if you can see them, but if you're like me in the trifocals, you have to have some help to be able to see them because they're very tiny. Often they look like little planets, or they look like a donut. It'll be kind of smushed in the middle. This is a hair streak. This is a great purple hair streak egg here on the left. They use mistletoe, which you see, it's a parasitic plant that you can see in trees, and great purple hair streaks use that. And then it shows how the different instars of the caterpillars frequently, each time they shed their skin and are a little bit bigger, they look different. So you can kind of tell by what it looks like if you're used to the caterpillar, how old it is, as well as how big they get. And then over there is a chrysalis that the butterfly has formed. That's where it will just stay. And when the chrysalis is ready to pop open, it will turn kind of clear. And if you're lucky enough to see one, you can see the wings. And see the pink one there, down here? You probably can't see it very well, but you can see the butterfly's eye down there at the bottom, right down there. Yeah, and the beginning of the wings starting to form through as the chrysalis gets lighter and lighter. Somebody was talking about cloudless sulfurs. That's the big yellow one you see. That pink one is a cloudless sulfur chrysalis. Yeah, so that's how it all works. They're all different for each one. It's very hard work to find them. One of the most common butterflies in our area, the Polydamas swallowtail, they're very hard to find, the chrysalis, and it's a pretty common butterfly.
How long does it take from the time the chrysalis is formed?
It varies. So like I said, some of them will overwinter in the chrysalis, but for the butterflies now that are pupating now, it can be as early as a week. Yeah, it varies, but it can be pretty quick if it's hot. Okay, so this is in our refuge. at the north end of the nature drive. You can take one of the trails out to the Swanee River. It's a really nice walk. You want to have plenty of DEET on your lower legs because it's sticky. But this is a great habitat for finding lots and lots of butterflies. I was there yesterday and it looks just like that right now. It's beautiful with all the irises blooming. Yeah. So to find butterflies and encourage butterflies and be part of the solution rather than part of the problem, we all need to do what we can to help butterflies grow. So butterflies need both host plants and nectar plants. And just because a flower is beautiful doesn't mean it is a good, suitable host or nectar plant, like roses. Roses are good for some moths, but there's not really a butterfly that's interested in eating a rose as a caterpillar or nectaring on a rose. So there are different host plants and nectar plants. When we say host plant, we mean the food for the caterpillar. And some can be both host and nectar, like milkweed, this one down here. And this is a milkweed that grows in the refuge. So in the summertime, you'll see that popping up in the kind of wet meadow areas. But host plants are important because the butterflies you can't just pick a plant and say, go grow on that. They're very, very specific, and if something happens to that plant, they're out of luck, because they do have to have the plant that is specific for their species. Nectar plants are for adult butterflies. Some nectar plants are also hosts. Generally, if you can see pollen on it, it's probably a good nectar source because that's what they're after. You know, they have that long straw it's like a long thumb, and it's got a straw at the end of it, and they touch and can ingest the nectar and bring the pollen in to eat that, and that's what they do. You know, the irises are blooming now, and they're just gorgeous out there. Yeah, just gorgeous. So, if you're interested in finding butterflies, there are several things that make it easier. First thing is you want to protect yourself from the sun and from biting bugs. And you know, mosquitoes are annoying, but some of them can carry diseases. The ticks can carry diseases, so you do want to do your best. You can see that some of us in that picture have pants tucked into our socks, into our boots, and some people are against using DEET. You know, that's up to you, but a lot of us spray our pants with either permethrin or DEET. You can put DEET on your skin. You can't put permethrin on your skin. So you want to protect yourself, obviously, and not just bugs and sunshine. There's lots of poison ivy out there and things like that, so you want to be careful about that. I will say that a lot of the butterflies that I look for that are in swampy areas involve walking in a lot of dry leaves, which is very productive for both finding the butterflies and finding the ticks. So if you're smart, you don't walk too far in the dry leaves, because that's where the chiggers and the ticks are. Also high grass. I'm talking against butterflying now, so I'm going to stop. Also, when you're butterflying in the summertime, you know how hot it is out here. Watch for signs of heat exhaustion, encourage each other to drink, carry lots of fluids with you, and rest in the shade when you can. Gosh, a butterfly ID book. Wouldn't that be a good idea? Commercial break. So we developed this butterfly book it's like an easy little book you can carry in your backpack.
It's excellent.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun doing it. And so for a donation, if you'd like to have one of these, we have those back in the back. The suggested donation is $20. And these are all the butterflies that have been recorded in the Lower Swanee Refuge in the past 20 years. So, but a butterfly ID book is a good idea. For me, when I first started doing it, I would carry a book and make notes of where I saw something and what date, because some butterflies are spring flyers, some are fall flyers. It kind of helps you if you wanted to try and find that butterfly again. Neutral colored clothing is a really good idea, because the big thing when you're trying to observe a butterfly is that you don't want to look like a predator. So bright white shirts look like bright white birds, and black shirts look like crows and things like that. So super neutral clothes are a really good idea when you're out in the woods. You can approach a butterfly more easily to take a picture of it or just look at it if you're not dazzling it with a lot of bright colors. Yeah, so you have to think like a butterfly if you want to find butterflies and not look like a predator. When you want to take a picture of a butterfly, and I remember when I took that picture, and that seems like that would be a really hard picture to take, but if you've seen how these swallowtails are around the thistle, you can practically go turn them upside down. They're so hungry to get that nectar, and thistle is a wonderful source of nectar. So I pretty much didn't have any trouble taking that picture. But you want to approach a butterfly slowly. You can't run up on a butterfly, and you can't say, oh, everybody come over here and look, because what do I look like? A predator. And we discourage pointing because that's another predator kind of thing. So you just kind of want to walk up really slow, raise your camera or your binoculars slowly, and try to let everybody that you're with get a look as well. Shadows are really important when you're looking at butterflies because a shadow means a predator is approaching. So you kind of need to know where the light is, and as you're looking, pay attention to your shadow, which usually means you can step to the left or the right to get around your own shadow so that it doesn't fall on the butterfly. Yeah, so that's how you do it. The other thing with trying to figure out what butterfly you're dealing with, or like when people say, can you tell me what this butterfly was that I saw? These are the things that you want to know about, is the general color and the size. You know, there's like the Sweetener's juniper hair streak, it's the size of a thumbnail. That tells me a whole bunch of, that rules out a whole bunch of things. The shape of the butterfly, that tells you kind of what genus of butterfly it is, and that's helpful. The flight pattern. There's some butterflies that if they fly as high as your knee, they're up in the mountains as far as they're concerned. They stay really close to the ground. There's other butterflies that if they ever come down, they're dying, you know? So where you see it is another kind of important way to help you figure out what a butterfly is and where to look for one. And what is it doing? There are a lot of butterflies that are super, super active, and there are other butterflies that will go sit on a flower for an hour. So that also kind of helps you. And the location and the season. In North Florida, unlike down in the Keys and South Florida, we do tend to have more butterflies that are season related. Like right now there's a butterfly, a Viola's wood satyr that's out there right now. It only flies for about 6 weeks and then that's it, game over until next year. If you're in the woods, you'll see them, they're everywhere right now. Real pretty little butterfly, I'll show you. But there are a lot of butterflies that fly in a particular season, and then you might as well save your time if you're trying to look for them again. And we tried to put that in the book so you would know when you can see them. The other wonderful thing about Florida is there are a lot of butterflies that most of the year you can find them. So that's good. You don't have to go out there when it's 100 degrees. You can look in the fall. There's plenty of butterflies I've photographed on New Year's Day. So that's a nice thing for us as opposed to being in, you know, Montana or whatever, where they're not going to be flying on New Year's Day. So this is just to give you an idea of different shapes of the families of butterflies that we see in our area. Everybody knows what skippers look like. They're the little fighter jets. And my sister, who's not a butterfly person, she said, why do you photograph them? They're too brown to photograph. They're the little brown ones. They have lots of different patterns on them. Generally, people don't get into skippers until they've been doing it a while, because the skippers are kind of a whole nother thing. And we have lots and lots of skippers in North Florida. Satyrs are all that kind of round, slightly pointy shape up there at the top. They tend to be in the dark areas. They're in the swampy areas. You're not going to see them out in the middle of a field or on the beach. You have to go into the darker shaded areas to find them. Everybody knows what the swallowtails look like. Typically they have those long tails. They're pretty big. They're soaring around. Crescents, very common butterfly in our area. We have two right in the refuge, pearl crescent and Phaon crescent. They look really similar. That's another one that's typically knee level or lower. They will come up occasionally, but if you're looking for a crescent, look on the ground, the low-lying flowers. And the hair streaks, which are my favorites, They're triangles typically, dark triangles, and they need tiny flowers. They have very short proboscis, the little straw that they eat with, so they need a very tiny flower that's shallow, like willows. The willows that were just blooming, that are now, the fluff is flying all over town. When the willows are blooming, hair streaks are all over the willows. There are a lot of hair streaks that only fly in the spring and then they're done until next year, but there are plenty that fly year round. And then the sulfurs tend to be yellow or orange. They're very fast flyers, really tricky to photograph because they're very wary and they can be in the next county in 10 minutes. So, but we have lots of sulfurs. So let's start with the swallowtails. So this is a pipevine swallowtail, which is nasty to eat if you're a bird. So way back when, the other swallowtails figured out if we look like a pipevine, the birds are probably going to avoid us. So see that? I made this picture black and white so you could see the orange, they call it a pipe. But you'll see as we go through the swallowtails, they all have some version of that pipe. And there's even another butterfly that's not a swallowtail that also has that pipe. So, but they all are trying to be the pipevine. Pipevines are the smallest in our area of the swallowtails you see. And they don't all sit on your finger. So the tigers, I started kind of big ones to little ones. The eastern tiger, the yellow ones here, pretty common. You'll see them in forests. They fly out into meadows. They get hit by cars on the road. I think I hit like 5 driving out here from Gainesville today. There's a black form, which is always really exciting to see. The black form is always female. That's just the way they are. And that's the biggest butterfly that we have. Even though there's another swallowtail called a giant swallowtail, the tiger is actually a little bit bigger. So the tigers are our biggest ones. See that blue rim around here? That's how you know that's a female. The male looks just like that but doesn't have that blue rim at the bottom. The black swallowtail over here on the right, that's another one that's fairly common. They like wet areas. They use things like water hemlock, things in the carrot family. If you have fennel growing in your garden, you're going to get acquainted with a black swallowtail. Sorry. Yeah, so black swallowtails are another one that are very common out here. The giant swallowtail, that's another one. They use citrus. So if you want to plant an orange tree, they're not going to bother your oranges, but they will eat the leaves on the new growth. But that is a beautiful swallowtail to see. They're pretty easy to raise too. I have a bunch of different of their host trees in my yard and I always have caterpillars on it. Palmetes, that's a very common one. That one is in trouble though. The red bay, if you've heard about that beetle that's infesting the red bay, and if you drive out and see the red bay trees, you see a lot of dead growth on them, or if they're dead altogether, that's a problem because that's their host. And like I said, you can't say, now you all need to switch to citrus, because they can't. So that's a concern that we have, and we watch those populations. Polydamas swallowtail, that is one that you can see that one in Gainesville. You're not going to see that one out here. That's more of a South Florida butterfly, but there are a couple populations, like if you've been to Knapaha Gardens, they have a lot of the Dutchman's pipe. That's the host plant that they use there, and you can see them there. There's your pipe vine again. And see, these are all males down below that have the bright iridescent on the hind wing. The female is basically dark. She has a white line on the bottom, but she's basically dark all over on the bottom. Spice bush is one of my favorites. I just think they're beautiful. Yeah, and that's a female there. The male has a greenish sheen on the hind wing instead of being blue. That's how you can kind of tell them apart. And you've probably seen zebras. Zebra swallowtails use pawpaw. So if you want to see them, a forested area that's got lots of pine trees and palmetto, that's where pawpaw grows, and you'll see them, they're fast flyers zipping back and forth across the road. So if you really, really want to know how to tell the swallowtails apart, you probably want to keep a picture of this slide, which is in the book. because this tells you the little keys that help you differentiate if you see them closed like these are. When they're nectaring, they tend to close their wings while they're eating, so it's hard to kind of identify what they are. But I drew the little arrows so you can see the pipe vine over here just has that perfect pipe there. There's nothing else there. The black swallowtail has what in my mind looks like an extra tooth in the pipe. There's like an extra orange spot. The Palamedes has that line, and a friend of mine taught me, my pal walks the line. That's how you know it's a Palamedes. That's the only one that has that line, and they're really big. And the spice bush has that blue comet that kind of is where there should be an orange tooth, as it were. That's how you can tell them apart. The ones that are more like a definite color other than black are fairly easy to tell apart. The tiger and the giant are a little harder to tell apart, and I don't know what to tell you about that because they're not going to be sitting like this, they're going to be flying. Yeah. They're much easier to tell apart if you can see the dorsal top, because the tiger is going to be all yellow and the giant is going to be mostly black with a big yellow band. And the zebra looks like a zebra whether you're looking at the top or the bottom. So, who do you think those are? So, this is a spice bush, right here, a female spice bush. That's a pipe vine. And these are two male tigers. See how they don't have the big blue on the bottom? Yep. So they are puddling, and puddling is typically something males do, and I'll tell you an interesting story about that. So the males are the ones that dab around in the dirt and the mud and pick up minerals, and they store them and then give them to the female. I call it the bridal gift. They give it to the female in the sperm packet when they mate. The female's eggs will not be fertile without that, but she can't ingest it. They get it from the male. So I just think that's really cool. Yes. So the sulfurs, the big yellow fast flyers that are hard to photograph. Cloudless sulfur is probably the one you would see most often. The one on the top is a female. She's got a lot of business on her wings. The male is basically plain. They like all different kinds of nectar, but they visit very quickly. On and on and on they're going. They don't sit around for any length of time. The best time if you want to photograph them or look at them is really early in the morning, because everybody is slow. They're all solar heated. So after a storm, when the sun comes back out, they sit and bask, and that's a good time, or early in the morning. Sleepy orange is another one that's even faster flying than cloudless. They're very difficult to get close to. When I first started butterflying, I thought I'm never ever going to take a picture of a sleepy orange. But then you do, if you look long enough. Smaller, probably about that big. Lots of blurry stuff on the wings, hard to tell the male and female apart, and just whipping around 100 miles an hour. Southern dogface is another one, and this one I'm worried about because I haven't seen one in a year, and I spend all my time looking for them. So that's another one that I'm kind of concerned about. It's a gorgeous butterfly. In the fall, they get this bright pink line around the whole butterfly. The rest of the year, they're yellow. They've got a pointy forewing, and that's kind of how you can tell them apart because they're the same size as cloudless, and they're going 100 miles an hour. Usually when you see a dog face, you say, oh, they want a dog face, because that's how they do. The picture of that one open, and oh, here's why they call it a dog face. Do you see? I call it a poodle. See the poodle? Yeah. That was just an accident picture because, of course, he didn't help me get that picture of him with his wings open. And sulfurs never open their wings. They never sit with their wings open. More sulfurs. So little yellows and barred yellows are very difficult to tell apart. They're the same size, they fly together, and they're knee level or lower.
My hearing aids are going nuts.
Little yellows have two little tiny dots right here. And you have to look for those little tiny dots. They also have a lot of just generalized dots on them, but that assumes they're sitting still, which they never are. Barred yellows are smeary. They have like somebody took all the dots and then smeared the yellow paint. Another thing that makes it hard is that in the winter they're yellow and in the summer they're white, both species. So they stay hard to tell apart. They're very common. We see them in the refuge up near the headquarters quite a bit. They tend to be in the ditches along there. Dainty sulfur is another one that is very, very common in South Florida, and I don't know why they're not common up here, because they use Spanish needles, Spanish needles that are in all the ditches along the roads. You would think that we would just be waving them out of our faces everywhere we go because of how prevalent the host plant is. But they're pretty rare up here. I don't see them up here very often at all. And they are tiny. We're talking like tiny, really little, always near the ground. And then the whites, I think of these as being the Cedar Key butterfly, because these, both the great southern white and the checkered white, love to be near the coast. They share a host plant. Have you seen that pepper grass? It grows in ditches, disturbed areas. It's like the little spires that get white toward the end. That's their host plant. Great southern whites, you can always see the ocean or the Gulf. If you're looking at one of those, they just never come very far inland. Checkered whites do. We see them in Gainesville, but much more common out here. Both very fast flyers, probably not going to sit around for you much at all. And they come in, like all of a sudden there'll be an eruption of them and they'll be everywhere. And then you won't see them for a few months, and then there'll be more. So they tend to come out in great bunches and then kind of fade away. The biggest group of butterflies, the biggest family, are the nymphalids, and the common name for that is the brushfoot butterflies. Lots and lots of butterflies belong in this family. They're not all big, but a lot of them are bigger butterflies. That doesn't include the sulfurs or the swallowtails. There are 5,000 species worldwide. We have about 70 in North Florida. These butterflies can live a really long time, like the zebra longwing. You've seen that one that uses passion vine. That's the Florida state butterfly. They can live like 10, 11 months. It's a very long-lived butterfly. Many of these migrate and travel very long distances, like, the monarch. They can be territorial, and you can always tell if you walk into their territory, they'll fly around or they'll perch right in front of you, kind of in an aggressive way, if you can imagine a butterfly trying to be aggressive to a person. And some of them, like this one here, is a question mark. They sometimes will fly and land on you. And you're in my territory. They often will use nectar sources that are not really nectar, like poop and dead animals, mud, that kind of thing. They will sometimes use flowers, depends on the species. Like I said, there's lots and lots of them, but they often frequently do like kind of non-nectar food sources. Question mark is one you're going to see in the woods. They like to go and land on a tree and do like this. Yeah. And that's the summer form. The winter form of a question mark is all orange. See how they have the black on the bottom? It's just all orange in the wintertime. All right, these are the really hard ones to tell apart. So the monarch is the biggest one, and I think of the monarch as having stained glass windows. You can, of course, make that argument for the other two, but I just think they really look like stained glass windows that are different shape. Monarchs are huge, so if you see a fairly small orange butterfly flying around, it's probably not a monarch. Monarchs soar. They don't flap a lot. They do this a lot. They also tend to fly with their legs hanging down, which I think is funny. You'll see them flying around with their legs down. Monarchs can cover a lot of ground. They migrate. They can cover a lot of ground very quickly. They're very strong flyers. Sometimes when we go out, like way out into the Gulf, there goes a monarch out in the middle of the Gulf. Yeah, they're very strong flyers. The Viceroy, that's a really territorial one. I've had them come and land on my head, come land on my arm, land on the car when I park the car. They just want you to know that you're invading their space. Very common in the refuge. They don't really start, and they've just started coming out. They come out kind of in the middle or late part of March, but they will fly until it gets cold. Always kind of associated near their host plant. They like to use willow. So if you see willows, there's probably a viceroy guarding his willow tree there. Queens are another one that's very common. I love queens because they fly when it's really cold. When I go do my survey in the refuge in December and January and I have my scarf and my coat on, there's queens out there. Queens tend to be a little browner than they look in this picture. They're a tiny bit browner, but it's still kind of a red color, and they have snowflakes on their top wings. So that's how you can tell queen. They also have kind of a weak flight. They just kind of, weakly fly around. They don't zoom around like the other two. And the other royalty that's out there is the two emperors. Hackberry Emperor, I saw a beautiful one yesterday in the refuge, and Tawny Emperor. Tawny Emperor is really associated with coastal areas, so that's a good one to see when you're near a beach or out in the Gulf, near the Gulf. They look very similar and they act very similar, and they have the same host plant. They like to sit upside down on a tree, looking down, and they'll flap their wings like a question mark, like that. They're very cool. Pretty big butterflies. Ladies are hard to tell apart, especially when they're flapping around. The good news is, most of the time when you see a lady, it's an American lady in Florida. Painted ladies migrate. We tend to see them in the fall. But I can see one painted lady a year and see a lot more American ladies. How you tell them apart, see those eye spots down right here? American lady has 2 big eye spots, and painted lady has 4 little eye spots. I have a sick grandchild, so that's my daughter. 4 little eye spots on the painted lady, but most likely you're going to see American ladies around here. These are the bossy ones who will land on you. And buckeyes, you've probably seen buckeyes before. They tend to fly fairly low. Buckeyes love to lead you on a walk. If you're out on a path, there'll be a buckeye in front of you. They'll just stay in front of you the whole walk. I think that's a beautiful butterfly, though. Question marks and red admirals, real bossy. They'll land on you, zoom around you, kind of do a quick flyby and right near your nose. They tend to be more in the woods. You're going to see them more in the woods. Buckeyes, however, like to be in fields, real bright, sunny, open areas. That's where you see them. Buckeyes use field weeds. Toadflax and foxglove, those are things that my husband is probably at home mowing in our yard right now, even though I asked him not to. That's the host plant that they use, so that's why they like to be out in meadows. They're always cruising around looking for females near the host plant. So the red-spotted purple, I wanted to just point out, do you see this? That's another one that mimics the pipevine. So it's not a swallowtail. Notice it doesn't have the tails on it. And there's some evidence that red-spotted purples and viceroys can mate. It's really interesting. They use the same plant and they have the same body language. They do everything very, very similar. And you'll see them flying around together. I think they're just gorgeous. White peacocks are a butterfly that used to be something I only saw when I went to the Everglades. I think it's probably a global warming thing. As the state is getting warmer, they're moving up. We used to never see them up here. Now, in the summertime, it's a very, very common butterfly around here and out in the refuge. They use a plant that's it's a weed that grows in the water, and their caterpillars have to deal with water going up and down, so they have to be able to deal with that because they are really raised on water plants. Goatweed leafwing is another one that you're not likely to see out here. They use croton. They're at San Velasco and some other areas like Goethe State Forest, but you could see them. So these are probably butterflies you're familiar with, at least the first one and the third one. The Gulf fritillaries love Cedar Key. They use passion vine, which is pretty common out here. Out on your little Vita course out there near the cemetery, there's always a Gulf frit out there. You'll see they're a pretty fast flyer, and they actually migrate, and so they move through quickly, and you'll notice the white underneath is kind of silvery and it sparkles when they fly by. Variegated fritillaries related to Gulf fritillary, you'll see 80 Gulf fritillaries before you see one variegated. You don't see them that often. They also like open areas, but you can find them in shaded areas as well. The zebra longwing, which is the state butterfly of Florida, like I said, very long-lived butterfly, also uses the same host as the Gulf fritillary, the passion vine. And if you're looking at passion vine and you see the caterpillars, the Gulf fritillary caterpillars are orange or red with black spikes on them. They're soft spikes. They're supposed to look scary, but they're soft. And the zebra longwings are white with black spikes. Zebra longwings do an interesting thing at night. They form what's called a creche, and they will chain together. They love Spanish moss. They will chain together in a real private area. And if you disturb them, they won't come back to that area again. I remember this story. I took that picture on the 19th of December in 2007. The next day it was like 21 degrees. So I think they probably all died the next day. But I remember seeing that in my yard one evening. This is the Cedar group, and they're the big round butterflies. They tend to be a brown butterfly, and they like to be in the wooded areas and swampy areas. This is one I'm dying to find in our refuge, and their host plant is there, so they should be there, but I haven't been able to find one yet, so I'm working on that. But isn't he gorgeous? I think that's one of the prettiest butterflies in Florida. You can find that one in I've seen them in San Velasco, and I've seen them in refuges north and south of us. So it's weird to me that I haven't found it here, but I'm still looking. More satyrs, and they're very hard to tell apart because, as you can tell, like my sister would say, they're too brown to photograph. They are about the same size, and of course they all fly together, and they all fly the exact same way. The Viola's little wood satyr, this guy here, is flying right now. That is one that starts flying in the late part of February, and they'll be ending soon. By like the middle of April, they'll be gone, and we won't see them again until next year. And all those big eye spots are how you can tell that you're looking at them. Carolina satyrs also have eye spots, but they're very small, and when they're sitting open, which they do, they're plain on the inside. I made a little star onto that one because I just want to tell you, in the interest of science, they have split Carolina satyrs into two subspecies, but we have to have a microscope to tell them apart, so we won't worry about that. Gem satyr, a little more rare. Probably Carolina is the most common one you'll see. They come out to the side of the road and then go back into the woods. Gem satyr does the same thing, but you just don't see them very often. More satyrs. Georgia satyr is another beautiful one. I found them south of here and north of here, but I haven't found them anywhere in North Florida. I would love to, though, because it's a really pretty butterfly. They like a wet meadow. So go out there in those wet meadows and find a Georgia satyr. Appalachian brown, I found the first one yesterday. They start in late March. It's a bigger satyr, about this big, always in the dark, dark, dark. Way back in the back. I got lucky with that picture with that one sitting open. They never do that. So I must have been there right after it rained. Common wood nymphs are anything but common. In 20 years, I've seen 2 of them in the refuge. Yeah, so it's a big cedar, great big. And they like to perch on pine trees at about eye level. So they're real easy to see if they're out there. And they've got that beautiful, and they flash their wings. It's probably to scare you with that big bright eye spot. Eye spots are scary to predators because it looks like an owl or something with big eyes. But yeah, uncommon wood nymphs is what they should be called. So the crescents, these are butterflies that you probably have seen. These are the little guys. They're down low, come up about knee level. They're always nectaring on little teeny weeds in ditches and on the sides of roads. Phaons and pearls are very difficult to tell apart, and of course they fly together. But when you need a butterfly fix in January, you can always find a crescent out there. I tell people that pearls don't have, or phaons have pearls and pearls don't have pearls. See these little, I call that a pearl, and you won't see that on a pearl crescent, just a phaon. I would say pearls are more common, and I'm just saying that now with having done these studies where we're counting every single one, and we see lots more pearls than we do phaons. Texas crescent is, if you drive back toward Gainesville, right outside of Bronson in the wet Devil's Hammock area, you can find Texan crescents in there. Why they're not in our refuge, I don't know, because I find their host plant, but something isn't right about the refuge habitat to sustain them. So I have never found one, but I'm going to before I'm done. The blues, these are very, very little butterflies. You guys are probably most likely to see the pygmy blues out here, but you have to really be paying attention because we're talking pinky nail. The eastern pygmy blue is the tiniest butterfly in North America. And do you see that's a Spanish needle? You see it's got 6 of them on it. So we're talking really tiny. Yeah, but they're beautiful. They're called blues, and it's more because of the body shape and their habit. There's nothing blue about them. They're kind of a bronze color, but they have a little ridge on the hind wing that glitters. It's really, really pretty if you see a fresh one. Of the other two, the most likely one you're going to see in North Florida is the Serranus blue. Again, it's going to be ankle level and lower. You know, one might soar up to knee level, but they're right on the ground. Cassius blue, which looks very similar to it, is fairly common in South Florida. You see more of them in South Florida, and they tend to fly up here. From a distance, they look really similar, but Cassius blue has a lot more white on it. Cassius blue looks very similar to Miami blue, and you've heard of that. That's one of the endangered butterflies in South Florida. They look a lot alike. Skippers. So there's way too many skippers to talk about, and I tried to put a nice variety of skippers up here so you could see they're not all too brown. There's lots of different skippers. They come in different shapes and sizes, and boy are they everywhere around here. They really kind of come out starting toward the end of March. We've noticed just in the last couple of weeks that we're seeing double and triple the number of skippers out there now than we were seeing earlier in the year. And they will continue to fly through into the late fall, and even sometimes you might see a few of them when it's cold. But I'm just going to leave it at that with the skippers. They're all in here though. These are the spread wing skippers, which are the ones that almost never close their wings. They usually, when they're sitting someplace, are sitting with their wings open. Tropical checkered skipper is pretty common. That one likes a lot of weedy plants that are in neighborhoods. They use Sida, that's a Sida that one is sitting on, and that at least grows a lot in my yard, so you may see that. The cloudy wings tend to fly more early in the spring, and then they kind of disappear, which makes it hard because there's 3 of them and they all look almost identical. And so every year I have to reteach myself which cloudy wing I'm looking at. We saw 3 of them, all 3 of them yesterday in the refuge. The dusky wings, we have 4 dusky wings in our area. They all look pretty much like this one. Horace's is the most common, and it flies almost all year. So that's probably the one, if you see one, that's probably the one you're going to see. We're now moving into the elfins and the hair streaks, which are my very favorites. The elfins and hair streaks have little tails, unless they don't. Like you can see, this eastern pine elfin does not have tails. The tails are thought to be a way for the butterfly to fool a bird, because you'll see all the hair streaks when they're sitting, they're going like this. There's only one of them that will open its wings when it's sitting. The gray hair streak does that. The rest of them pretty much leave their wings closed, but they do this. But those little tails, what do you think they look like? The antennae, right? So if the butterfly is doing that and a crow or something sees it, it may fly down and grab those tails and fly away, and the butterfly gets to live another day. We see a lot of them where their tails have been ripped off. But that's a habit they all share. They all do that. Henry's elfin is finishing up right now. They start late February and they finish up by about the middle of April. So they coincide very closely with the willows blooming. When the willows are blooming, you're going to find Henry's if you look, and when they're not, you're not. The hair streaks are all very similar looking from a distance, and again, they're thumbnail size. So they're little. They tend to be on blooming trees that are up high. Banded hair streaks only fly in April and May. I've seen a couple of them in the refuge, but then they are gone for the year. Gray hair streaks are around most of the year. I just saw my first one this year yesterday in the refuge. Red bandeds, it's another one when you need a fix in January. You can find a red banded if you take a walk in the woods. They're tiny and they lay their eggs on dead leaves, which I think is crazy, but they do. You'll see them on the ground. They lay their eggs on dead leaves. Great purples, we talked about that one earlier. They use mistletoe. They're gorgeous. You can't really see it in my picture, but if you could move the wings apart, it's a bright china blue. They're real pretty. White M's, also another one that you find out here, more common. Southern oaks should be starting any minute. I thought we would see one yesterday, we didn't, but they start about now, and they finish up by about the end of May. And you won't see them again. And my favorite, that's the Cedar Key hair streak right there. Yeah. So now let's do moths real quick. So the giant silkworm moths, oops. I guess I don't want to do that slide. Their caterpillars typically choose trees instead of like small plants, and the reason for it is they're huge. So if you chose a little weed, you'd fall over as soon as you got big and be on the ground. So they tend to use trees a lot. A lot of them make big cocoons about this big that often are hanging like Christmas ornaments. You can find them that way. The females emit a hormone, it's a pheromone, and they can call males, and the males have those big feathery antennae. If you've seen a male Luna, or this is a female in this picture, males have these big huge antennae. They can find a female from 7 miles away. Isn't that amazing? And that's flying around in the wind. That antenna will pick up the pheromone and they'll fly back and forth through it and find their way to the female. I just think that's amazing. So when the caterpillars are mature, which takes about 6 weeks from the time the egg hatches, then they form the cocoon. Remember, it's a chrysalis for a butterfly and a cocoon for a moth. Some make the Christmas ornament in the tree, and some pupate underground. The ones that pupate underground are very hard to find. The adults of the silk mouths have no mouth. They cannot eat at all. And that's a very interesting thing that I had a hard time understanding, but they really live about a week. It's a flying egg case. The real majority of their life is, well, a lot of it is the dormant stage in the cocoon, because some of them only, like Cecropia, which is the biggest one in North America, they only fly here like March and April, and then that's it. So the majority of their life is spent sitting in a cocoon waiting for March. But the caterpillar stage, which again is about 6 weeks. Hey.
I was just going to ask, so what is their ecological role?
Their role, well, they're an extremely good source of protein and fat for a predator.
Okay.
Yeah, bears get a lot of their calories by eating moths. Yeah, not these moths typically. It's usually smaller moths that they eat 8 million of them a day. But when the moth is flying around, especially the females, they have like 100 eggs, and that's a huge mouthful of fat and calories for a predator. I like to think that's not their purpose, but the reason they have no mouth is that that's not a part of their life when they're trying to sustain themselves. It's the part of their life where they're trying to reproduce. So this is a Luna. That's a female. The females tend to be greener and the males tend to be more yellow. Right here. When you see a Luna caterpillar, they like sweet gum. You know, the star trees that are everywhere. If you see a green caterpillar with that yellow line, it's probably a Luna. And they get big. When they're mature, the caterpillar's about that big, like the size of your finger. This is a Polyphemus. That's another one you're likely to see on the gas station at 4 o'clock in the morning near the light. That's a female in that picture. The male looks the same, but again has the big gigantic antennae, and that's what the caterpillar looks like. They use oak trees. This is an Io. Have you seen Ios? Sometimes you see them on the front porch under your light. This is a female. The male, the body is yellow with a little bit of pink in it, but it has those giant big eye spots. This caterpillar you don't want to pick up. That's a stinger. And he looks like he's advertising that he can sting you. Yeah. This is an imperial moth. That's the male. The female is almost all yellow with a little bit of pink on her, and she's bigger than the male. They pupate underground. I haven't been able to raise this one yet because I can't find a cocoon to get a female with because they're underground. This is a regal moth. This is another one that pupates underground. If you've ever heard of a hickory horn devil, have you ever heard of those? This is pretty much the coolest caterpillar ever. They change color through each instar. They start out kind of yellow and then they're orange, and when they're mature, it's like a hot dog, and they're blue. They're like this big, and they have these great big antlers. And if you've never seen one before, you're pretty sure that it's a cobra or something because they just look lethally deadly. But those antlers are really designed to frighten a wasp because wasps and flies parasitize all kinds of caterpillars. So if they're getting bothered by a wasp, they swing that head around with those antlers and shoo it away. Yep. That one is a female that flew up on my front porch. Usually if you see one, if you want to raise them, if you see a female, she's probably already bred, and you can put them in a paper bag, close the paper bag until the next day, and when you open the paper bag, you have 100 eggs. Yep. Yep. If anybody wants to do that, I can coach you because we've done this several times. They're pretty easy to raise, and they're way cool.
What kind of leaves?
The regal moth uses sweet gum, which is super common. It's the same thing the Luna uses. They both use other things, but sweet gum is easiest because you can always get that. This is a sweet bay silk moth. This is another Cedar Key moth. This is one that's very common in coastal areas. They're flying right now. They tend to fly early in the spring and then they're kind of done. No, that's not true. The orange ones, they have an orange form early in the spring, and after that, then it looks just like this, but it's dark brown. This is what the ones look like that come out now. I found one of them the other day.
Are they on bay trees?
Sweet bay.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be sweet bay.
Okay. Because the bay trees around here are dying. They go blight.
Well, that's red bay.
That's red.
Yeah,
bay.
sweet bays are taller. They're not a super pretty tree, and if you can see, the bottom of the leaves are kind of grayish silverish. That's what they have to have. They won't feed on red bay. This is a Cecropia, and like I said, this is the biggest moth in North America, and a big female is about like that, and they are gorgeous. And if you raise them, you are going to work because they are pigs. And you have to get food for them like every day. They'll eat all the food you give them in one day. So you're very busy for about 6 weeks. And they make a great big cocoon that's about this big, and it's like a paper bag, it looks like. It's not a tight little round thing. It looks like a big brown paper bag, and it'll be horizontal on the tree branch. This one is in trouble. This one is, acid rain has been a really big problem for them in the Northeast. Okay, really good places to go butterflying if you live around here. Obviously, I can't say enough about the refuge. Anywhere you go in the refuge, there's wonderful butterflies everywhere. So the Nature Drive, which is the 9-mile nature drive on the south side of the river, is a fantastic place to butterfly. I think we had 45 species yesterday. So that's a lot, and that's good. San Falasco is a great place to go. You'll see a lot of the forest butterflies. San Falasco is in Gainesville. That's a good place to see a lot of the forest butterflies. Devil's Hammock, which is right near here, about halfway between here and Gainesville on the north side of the road. A very good place to see, again, swampy, foresty butterflies. Morningside Nature Park in Gainesville, kind of on the east side of Gainesville. Lots of good nectar sources there, lots of variety. Kanapaha Gardens is great. They have 2 different butterfly gardens, so you can see a lot of good butterflies there. Goethe State Forest, which is south. If you go down to Otter Creek and turn south on 98, when you get down to, I think it's Lebanon Station, that's where Goethe is, and that's a great place to butterfly. Tide Swamp, which is north of us near Steinhatchee, is a wonderful place to butterfly. And there's a drive that you can drive through the Tide City main line. Real rare butterflies there. I go up there a lot. And Paynes Prairie. Paynes Prairie is a great place to butterfly. But around here, like the Vita Course by the cemetery, that's a good place to see butterflies too. So you guys are in a great place to see them. So we are doing a walk on Thursday, April the 6th in the refuge on Barnett Creek Road. We did it back in the fall. We did really well in the fall. Spring and fall is really the best time for lots of different numbers of butterflies. But this first week of April is kind of the peak of the spring flight, which is what they call it when there's new butterflies out. So if you're interested in that, come to the Nature Drive and just come up to Barnett Creek Road, and that's where we'll do a little walk and look for all the butterflies in that area.
What time?
Is it 9 o'clock, Peg? Is that what you
Start
said?
meeting at 8:45 and start walking at 9.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. That's it. What questions can I answer?
I'm just curious about the best plants to get them to start coming.
So in your area, if you live around Cedar Key, you're going to do better with things that like dry, things that can live in sandy, dry areas. I live in a wetlands, and you're welcome. I live in a wetlands, and I can't get anything to grow in my yard that wants to be in the sand. So your best bet, there are a lot of butterfly books you can buy that are butterfly gardening in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I would look, Mark Minnow, who's a PhD lepidopterist at UF, has a lot of books that are butterfly gardening in Florida. I would just go and look for one of those, because that is the most important thing you can do, is plant a butterfly garden, and you need host plants and nectar plants. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the butterfly weed, they call it up in Michigan, it's purple, and they say it's invasive? Is it?
It doesn't grow down here. The one in Michigan that's purple won't grow down here. The orange one, this one, does grow down here, but I have tried and tried and tried. It will grow where it wants to grow. It will not be disciplined. It will not do what you want it to do. You can plant it and then watch it disappear. So the plants that you can buy of milkweed around here, the perennis milkweed, which is the white one that tends to grow in more dark areas, but you need a wet place for that. That does really well in my yard, and it will reseed itself, and that's a host for the queens and the monarchs. Supposed to discourage you from buying it at Lowe's, because that's the one that can have, I think it's a parasite that can kill the caterpillars, so that you're not supposed to buy that. Yeah. Yeah.
When
What
are
else?
you going to do a moth book?
I don't know. The whole moth science is a whole huge thing. You're welcome. There's way more moths than there are butterflies. Yeah, yeah.
Anybody have any more questions? No.